Hi, my dear lovely students. How are you? Welcome to the session. My name is Juhi Narula, and in today's class, we are going to talk about parajumbles. So, for initial few minutes, we will talk about important strategies, and the later part of the session will be dedicated to intense question practicing. So, let's get started. So when we talk about parajumbles, there are various ways to present this question. At times, this question can be presented with options. At times, there could be no options and you would type in the answers. So we also call them theta questions. So I'll just quickly write it for you so that you're aware. Usually when we talk about CAT, the questions are in theta format. That means you would have to type the answer, right? So just give me a minute. Yeah, so this is theta. Theta means type in the answer, okay? Type in the answer. So usually there is no negative marking, but you have to be very cautious since without having the options, things become slightly challenging. Now there can be times where you will be given four statements and you need to rearrange. At times you can be provided with five statements that you need to rearrange. At times there is just one statement which is fragmented and you need to rearrange so that the entire sentence makes a meaningful idea. Also at times opening and closing sentences are provided and you need to arrange the middle statements. So there are various variations. We will try to cover as many as possible. In today's session, our idea is to rearrange four or five sentences, and we would not have any options so that you actually are able to, play the game in a more effective way. When it comes to options, of course, your life will really become easy. Now, since I told you that there's not always a possibility that you will be given options, so if you are having this idea that you will eliminate the options and you'll be able to reach through an answer, so please don't try to do that. You need to read and comprehend. So please understand that there are two things important for question solving. One is reading and other is comprehending the data. Comprehension means a understanding. So reading and comprehending goes hand in hand, and then you have to reason out to understand that how the ideas are flowing, how you need to arrange the statement so that it makes a cohesive sense, it makes a meaningful sense to you. So usually what do? We follow a structure of inverted pyramid. Usually, let me tell you what do we mean by inverted pyramid structure. So in most of the parajumbles, you'll find that a broader statement begins the discussion. Okay, so you will have a broad statement that will begin the discussion, and as you will proceed, the discussion would come to a more precise perspective. So usually we need to look for broader statements that will begin the discussion, and then you keep on adding the details and nitty-gritties to that further idea that has been talked about in the first sentence. Now, we will look for mandatory pairs. What are mandatory pairs? Mandatory is compulsory, and pair, two, a group of two. So we would be looking for two sentences which go hand in hand, right? And then based on these and little details, how these details are to be identified, and how do you solve a parajumble, we are going to discuss in detail. But then by looking for mandatory pair, that means you're able to identify two sentences that should be definitely together. So we will look for mandatory pairs. We would just not start from the eliminations. We would try to reason out, comprehend the data. So let's explore how are we going to do it. So try to look for a possible sentence that can be an opening sentence or which can be a closing sentence. Like I explained it to you, that the first sentence would be a broader sentence that will help us understand that what is the discussion about. So when we talk about broader sentences, you need to keep this in mind that you know uh, the broader sentence would not have a pronoun in it. So he, she, they, it. There's a high possibility that pronouns would not be present in the opening statements. Why? Because pronouns are replacers. Pronouns are words that you use instead of nouns. So first you need to introduce the noun, then only you can talk about it. Now, if I say she's a hardworking girl, she is, definitely going to do well in her careers. So you would ask, ma'am, who are we talking about? And if I begin the statement like this, that Arundhati lives in a small town of Rajasthan, and then I say she is a hardworking girl, so you'll be able to understand that she is referring to Arundhati. So this is an important thing that you need to keep in mind. This will also help you, make a mandatory pairs when you're looking for pronoun clues, right? So please see that the opening statement will not have a pronoun, and also you need to keep this in mind, that look for statements that will bring the discussion to a logical end. So at times you can have proper conclusion indicators, words like thus, therefore, hence, as a result. So these are words that you need to take care of while we are figuring out the closing statement, right? So let's move to the next clue. Before that, you can take a look at this particular set. You can just read it. I'll give you a minute to read, and then we are going to discuss that how we can look for an opening statement. This will give you a lot of understanding and help you understand that how the opening statements would look like. Read it carefully, and you'll be able to reach to this understanding. It's not very very difficult. So let's see. The plastic particles are found in three size ranges: microplastic, mesoplastic, and macroplastic. This estimate takes into account this estimate. So this is talking about what size ranges are there. So either it needs to have a base statement, or it would be talking about how these size ranges are used, or discussion would be on size ranges. Now if I come to B, this says this estimate takes into account the amount of plastic waste found in the shorelines, on the seabed, and in the water column. So you can clearly see that there is no connection between A and B, and hence it cannot be a mandatory pair. Also this, so we need to understand that which estimate are we talking about. A fails to provide any estimate. It is just talking about categories. So we can eliminate this possibility of having B as an opening statement. Come to C, believe it or not, nearly 269,000 tons of plastic comprising an estimated 5.25 trillion plastic particles are found in the world oceans. So if you are able to see that this is a good broad statement, so this can be an opening statement, and you will be able to relate B and C, that after C you can have B, right? All of these size ranges are equally harmful, and all nations should consider phasing them out. So size ranges were talked about in A, and then all of these size ranges, so these we know is talking about size ranges. So we can understand that after A, D will come, and after C, B will come. Now C is a broader statement, so we can have an arrangement like C, B, A, D. See, we just solved a para jumble question in a way where we were looking for an opening statement, and we reasoned out together. So please understand that you cannot have two iterations. At times, would students do? They would just read it for leisure, and then they would reread multiple times to get to the arrangement. Try to avoid rereading if there is no possibility of avoiding that, and if you are having some confusion, of course nobody says that you can't reread it, but since we have got a limitation of time and we would want to save our time, so this is the best suggestion where you read and reason out parallelly, right? So I hope you are able to understand. There are a lot of outputs from this particular question. First, that you can take into account that C is a broader statement, right? And then you can see this estimate. So this would be referring to the estimate which sentence C talks about, and you can see these size ranges. So these is one clue, this is another clue that you can consider and look for a broader statement. So we will talk about this and these in detail in the further slides. Now, like I said, pronouns are replacers. So words, if we talk about the definition, words which are used instead of nouns. So this is a simple definition of pronouns, right? So you need to have a noun first, and then you can talk about pronouns. Like the example that I gave, she's a hardworking girl, so you would not know. But when I say Arundhati lives in a small town of Rajasthan, she is a hardworking girl. So for you to able to understand who she is referring to becomes really easy. Further, let's take a look at this particular example. I'll give you a minute, read it. I'm sure you'll be able to understand. There's no rocket science when we talk about pronoun clues. So I'm sure you have read it. Ravi Duggal, the CEO of the Dabur, is of the opinion that Europe is a potential market for Dabur products. He should know, as he had spent an entire year touring all across Europe researching on this matter. So, see, we know that he is referring to Ravi Duggal, right? So, I hope you are able to understand that how pronouns would be really vital in solving the questions. Now, come to possessive and demonstrative adjectives. Possessive adjectives are that show belongingness, and demonstrative adjectives are like words like this, that, these, those, which are used to point out, right? So we have already talked about this clue when we were taking into consideration the example of plastic. So this example is again present, you will be able to understand it better. Let's see. Believe it or not, nearly 2,69,000 of plastic, comprising an estimated 5.25 trillion plastic particles, are present in the world's sea ocean. So, are you able to see this estimate? So, it is referring to the numeric estimate that has been discussed in the previous statement. So, words like this, those, that, these will be again very vital clues that can help you establish the mandatory pair. Now, next is chronological order. See, chronology stands for time, right? So, there can be two ways to make a sequence. First, I talk about the event which was most recent, and then I go back to the late event, right? So, from most recent, we will go back. Or it is we start from the, ancient event. Ancient event means the last event, and then we come to the present, right? So it can be both of the ways, present to past and past to present. So we say chronological order, one, two, three, four. This is chronological order, right? So when I talk about struggle, India's freedom struggle, I would talk about the revolt of Jhansi Lakshmi Bai Tatya Tope, and then I would come back to discuss all the events in between, and I'll talk about Dandi March and Quit India movement by Mahatma Gandhi. Now, there can be the reverse way also, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is reverse chronological order. That means I start with the latest event and then I go back and trace back the origin or the beginning of the discussion, right? So either of the ways it can happen. We'll take a look at some of the paragraphs to help you understand. So if you are able to see this first example, this is where chronological order is being established. Very interesting. You can give it a read and you'll be able to understand, and then of course we will discuss. So let's see. Buddhism originated in India and spread to China about 4 centuries after the time of historical Buddha Shakyamuni. So are we able to understand? This is 5th to 4th century BC. It was transmitted to Japan from China by the Korean peninsula around the middle of the 6th century AD. So are you able to see, from the ancient we are coming to the recent? It took around 3 centuries after this for the religion to gain ground and eventually flourish by the 10th century. Right? Are we able to understand? We are starting from 5th to 4th century BC, and then we are coming to 10th century AD. So this is how it is a chronological order. Now, if we take a look at this particular example, today is the day Mary accepted Robert's proposal of marriage. This is back in 1946. They met. So, for the first time in 1945. So first we are talking about 1946, then we are talking about in 45, then we are talking about what Elizabeth did not know was that Robert was already married and had three children. This marriage was solemnized in 1933. So, are you able to see that first we are talking about the latest event and then we are going back in the history? So, that's how you can have both the arrangements and both are correct. It will not happen that you will be given both the options correct, right? It will not happen that one arrangement would be in a logical, chronological order and simultaneously it can be arranged in reverse chronological. That would not happen. So, please don't create unnecessary confusion in your mind, right? So let's quickly take a look at the next clue. There would be linking words or phrases. So what are linking words or phrases that are connecting? So these words are also called transition words, and I am one trainer who would really recommend to observe transition words wherever possible. So if you attend my reading comprehension class, I would lay stress on transition words. If you are attending any class of mine where I'm talking about sentence completion, again I would talk about transition words. If there is a CR session, I would again lay emphasis. So I really believe that knowing transition words helps in solving the questions effectively, and this is one clue which as a student we should definitely utilize. So, and the best part is that you don't need to cram these words. You're aware of these words, it's just that you need to make a conscious effort to remember these words. So let's see. Therefore, as a result, consequently, as since, reason, because, so there is a cause and that's leading to an effect, right? So I got late, therefore I had to take a cab. uh, Rohini was performing well in the exam. As a result, she got a scholarship. Right? Perth met with an accident. Consequently, he had to be admitted. Right? Since Vijay is busy, he is not going to attend the seminar today. Right? So this is where we are talking about cause and effect, causality. So there is a reason present that's leading to a particular impact. Next is additional information. If you want to build the idea, you would use words like furthermore, moreover, in addition to, firstly, secondly. So look for these sentences. So, and if you look at this word, say if there is a sentence in addition to, so there's a previous sentence that would connect to this idea. So that's how transition words play a pivotal role in reaching to the right answer and looking for mandatory pairs. Contrast words are the words that help us understand that the discussion is proceeding in the opposite direction, right? So, nonetheless, nevertheless, in spite, despite, but yet, please take a look at such words so that it is really easy for you to, you know, uh, connect the statements which are going in the opposite direction. Say we talk about there is this startup which is having these many advantages, however, and the next part of the sentence talk about the problem. So that's how contrast words would be there for you, right? There can be at times a point presented and the next statement will provide an example to illustrate the point. So illustrations also play an important role in linking the ideas. And let's see, this is one example. Just read it well and then we would discuss. So let's discuss. India is a land of contradictions. The struggle between the ancient spiritualism and modern materialism, the friction between majority communities, religion, and other religions India nurtures, the battle for power between the central and government have tormented the country for decades. At the same time, these dualities have strengthened the young nation, helping India become more pluralistic and resilient. So it's talking about contradictions. So what are the contradictions? You can see that the second statement is talking about all such contradictions. So it's an elaboration, it's an illustration, it's an example to help you understand that how the variations occur or how the contradictions exist, and in a way is building the idea, right? So it will be easy to establish a mandatory pair when you get such clues. Now, at times, a question can be posed, and then the particular solutions would be offered by the next statement. So, this is also a way where mandatory pairs can be established. Let's take a look at this particular paragraph. What avenues is your wandering soul searching? Wandering matlab bhatakna. Soul is atma. What in short are you looking for? So there's a question posed right now. There's a solution offered. Look no further than your inner self. Therein lies not only the answer to your quest. Quest is your search, but also the key is to unlock the entire consciousness of the cosmos. We can observe that the first three sentences present questions, of course, I'm sure you're able to understand, and the later part is summarizing the possible solutions. Right? So, next, let's take a look at the first question and see how are we going to solve it. So, I'll give you a minute, please solve it, and then we are going to discuss it. Take 1 minute. We have learned so many clues, so you are well equipped with the information. You know how to tackle the question. So please read it well, and then we are going to discuss. Try to apply all the points that we have learned so far. Look for mandatory pairs, transitions, opening statements, closing statements. You have to rearrange. So your answer will be type in the answer. So you would be typing in the answer. Try this. So once you are done, we can discuss. Right, so let's try this. He left Karnataka in 1960 on a scholarship to study art at a government college of arts, Madras. So we are having he in the sentence. So he is a replacer. So that means this cannot be the starting statement. Also, you can understand from here that it would need to have a base statement before it, right? So we will look for that who is he referring to. That means we're eliminating the possibility of A being the opening statement. Come to the second one. At a times of fierce questioning across the arts, the friendship with Karnad compelled Vasudev to read modern Kannada literature, forging creative collaborations in illustration, theatre, and film that would become a hallmark of his work. So, whose work? And Karnad and Vasudev. So, there's a discussion. Now, this is not a very strong statement because this looks like a discussion in the middle of the paragraph. But we can't outrightly eliminate this to be a possibility of an opening statement. Never take a final call till you explore all the answer choices. Born in Mysore in 1941, where his mother was an amateur artist, Vasudeva has been encouraged to follow his vocation after his early newspaper caricatures were noticed. So, are you able to see born? So, it's basically setting the base that we are talking about Vasudeva, and the discussion would build further. So this is a better opening statement if you'll compare B and C, because it's beginning right from the start. So it is having that chronological aspect also into consideration. So we can consider it to be an opening statement. Of course, it's clear that between B and C, C will be a better one because this is a broader discussion starting from the birth to chronological order. Then it's telling that who Vasudeva was. Let's further see. From 1966 to 88, Vasudeva lived and worked as a founding member in Cholamandal Artists. village outside Chennai along with his artist wife Arnava's driver. Are you able to see that he's first going to study and then he's going to work, right? So clearly we can come to this conclusion that A will come before D. So how are we going to place? Let's see. There, his career was guided by the principal KCS Panekkar. He also met Girish Karnad, who had just returned to India. Both Kannada speakers, Vasudev and Kannad, interacted and worked together. So clearly, we can understand from the clues that it is 1941. Then he left to get study. So of course, after C, A will come, and I'm sure you are able to understand there. So there is referring to the college, right? So E will come after A. And once we have introduced the full name Girish Karnad, we know that here, of course, always there would be the entire name that will come first, and later you can have surnames to talk about. So here it is saying that the bond was there and how the friendship developed. So what can happen now is that B will follow after E, and D would state that after education, what did he do? He was a founding member of Chola Mandal Artists. So that brings the discussion to a logical end. Are you able to see the flow of ideas? So there's a lot of things here to notice. How did we look for the opening statement? How we were reading and reasoning out together. Also, we were looking for mandatory pairs. How we saw that first Girish Karnad should come and then Karnad reference should come, right? So all these are important things. First he is going to study, and then we took a clue there, so which was a demonstrative adjective. So in fact, whatever points we discussed during the initial few minutes, we have actually applied most of them in this question solving. So the correct answer was going to be CAEBD. Right, so let's move to the next question. I'll give you a minute, please try this, and then we are going to discuss. Try to apply the possible strategies that we have learned. If you are just solving the question without having the right approach, you will be in serious trouble, and that we would not want for ourselves. So let's discuss. Um, the Argentino peso, which has lost more than half of its value in 2018, for instance, witnessed a sharp loss of more than 10% on Thursday alone. So this is talking about a business trend. So let's see how the idea builds. The Indian rupee weakened past the 71 mark for the first time ever on Friday. So here Argentine peso is losing the value and saying that Indian rupee is also weakened, registering a loss about 10% of its value against the dollar since the beginning of the year. So looks like both these are explaining or illustrating a phenomenon. Now, this happened despite a 15% point increase in interest rate by Argentina's central bank. So, somehow we can see that there can be a possible relationship between A and C, as both are talking about Argentina's financial state. So, we can link, we can possibly see the ideas flow, but it looks like a mandatory pair. So this happened despite a 15 percentage point increase in interest rates by Argentina's central bank in order to stem the outflow of capital and shore up the value of the currency. Coming up to D, emerging market economies continue to be in the spotlight for the wrong reasons as their currencies resume their prolonged slide against the US dollar. So, prolonged slide, and then it is giving the example that emerging market economy. So, we can clearly see that we are talking about two examples, India and Argentina. So we can always consider D to be a good promising statement or opening statement, because that's basically helping us build the base, and the points are illustrated that how the market economies are struggling. That's being explained in A, B, C. So we can consider D. Further, we'll take a look at E. This makes the rupee the worst performing currency in Asia. So rupee, of course, is being talked about in B. Other emerging market economies, most notably the Turkish lira, the Argentina peso, and the South African rand, have suffered much larger losses owing to a serious loss of confidence among investors. This makes the rupee. So we should understand that B and E will again show some connection. So we can come to this conclusion that D is an opening statement, and as we realize that this makes the rupee, so the trend of rupee will be talked about. Now BE is a mandatory pair, so this is sorted, and we have already realized that A and C are again a mandatory pair because this happened. So what happened is illustrated in A. So DBEAC, this would be the right combination. I hope we are sorted. So let's move to the next question. Please try this and then we are going to discuss. So let's see. Having a strategy is a matter of discipline. So it looks like a good opening statement, broader statement, general statement. We can consider it. It involves the configuration of a tailored value chain and enables company to offer unique value. So let's see, what is it referring to? Now, it requires a strong focus on profitability and willingness to make tough trade-offs in choosing what to do, what not to do. So again, it is having it in it. Strategy goes far beyond the pursuit of best practices. So, okay, so this is another consideration. A company must stay the course even during times of upheaval while constantly improving and extending its distinctive positioning. Right. So if you'll see it, strategy is a broader statement. If you'll compare it to E, so we can have an arrangement possible. Let's see how it works. So first, C, it requires a strong focus on profitability and a willingness to make tough trade-offs. So discipline कैसे होगा? How are we taking it? Because tough trade-off wala point is included. So we can say that A and C will be a good mandatory pair. Further, if we are going to see, this requires a company must stay course even during time of upheaval, while constantly improving and extending its distinctive positioning. So if you'll take a look at E, this comes after D comes after it, and we will have ED as the next pair, and we can very easily conclude the discussion with sentence B. Right, so I hope it is clear to everybody. A straight question is a broader statement you need to identify. So ACDB would be the correct combination. Right, so we can read it to make us understand that whether the combination is right. Having a strategy is a matter of discipline. It requires a strong focus on profitability. We consider discipline and tough trade-offs, and a willingness to make tough trade-offs in choosing what not to do. Then we talked about the company must stay the course even during the time of upheavals. So of course we'll talk about company scenario, because further it is saying that strategy goes beyond the pursuit of best practices, and how it goes, that's the statement explaining. It involves a configuration of tailored value chain that enables a company to offer unique value. So we had to connect company, and the best way could have been with E, then D, and then B. Right? So let's move to the next question. Please try this and then we are going to discuss. I'll give you a minute to solve. So let's start the discussion. So, a few months ago, I went to the Princeton University to see what the young people who are going to be running our country a few decades are like. So, broader statement, good possibility of being an opening one. I would go to sleep in my hotel room around midnight each night, and when I awoke, my mailbox would be full of replies sent at 1:15 a.m., 2:59 a.m., 3:23 a.m. There's no direct connection that I can see between A and B. So let's further see. One senior told me that she went to bed around 2 and woke up each morning at 7. She could afford that much rest because she had learned to supplement a full day of work by studying in her sleep. Now, faculty members gave me the name of few dozen articulate students, and I sent them emails inviting them to lunch or dinner in small groups. So, what he was doing there, he took the names and then he was inviting them via mails. So, are you able to see that B would be the statement that fits in after D? He would be sending the mails and then he would receive the replies at awkward times, and that's what is being explained. Now, if we are able to understand that there's a connection between D and B, then we are able to look for a mandatory pair. Let's further see. As she was sleeping, as she was falling asleep, she would recite a math problem or a paper topic to herself. She would then sometimes dream about it. When she woke, the problem might be solved. So, supplement her full day of work by studying in her sleep. So, how it is being done, that's being elaborated by E. So, again, you can see C and E makes a mandatory pair. So A is an opening statement, CE makes a mandatory pair, and then DB, where do you insert this mandatory pair? It would definitely come between A and CE because he would, be sending the mails and then what he could get as an answer. So first, the problem would be coming that the replies were coming at awkward times, and how what was responsible, that's being illustrated in C and E. So the correct combination would be A, D, B, C, E. I hope we are sorted. So let's try the next question. I'll give you a minute. Please try this and then we are going to discuss. So let's try. This very insatiability of the photographing eye changed the terms of confinement in the cave our world. So are you able to see this very insatiability? That means that can be an opening statement, cannot be an opening statement. It needs to have a base statement before it. Humankind lingers unregeneratedly in Plato's cave, still revealing its age-old habit in mere images of truth. B is a broad statement, can be a possible opening one. But being educated by photographers is not like being educated by older images drawn by hand. For for one thing, there are great many more images around claiming our attention. So if you will see, then it's we are looking for truth, so there can be a good possibility that B and C can make a mandatory pair. Now further, let's build the statement. The inventory started in 1939, and since then, just about everything has been photographed, or so it seems. So everything being photographed, and this is insatiability. That means the desire that's not getting satisfied. So we can see that DNA definitely looks like a mandatory pair. So this we can conclude, and we know that. Okay, let's come to E before we take a final call about the opening one. In teaching us a new visual code, photographs alter and enlarge our notions of what is worth looking and what we have the right to observe. So DA is a mandatory pair. Now, if you will compare B and E, B of course looks far more promising as an opening one if you'll compare it to E. Now, we have two statements to be placed, C and E. So let's see what can be the best placements here. So but being educated, so still revealing is in mere images of truth. So humankind lingers, is not like being educated by older images. So this is illustrating that how its age old habit is in mere images of truth. So C would fit in better after B, right? So BCDA is one thing. Now let's see. Um, the photographic graphing eye changes the term of confinement in teaching is how it is being done. That's what E is elaborating, right? So E would be the good statement to finish the discussion. So the correct combination is going to be BCDA E. So this very insatiability that we are clicking photo of everything, that's an easy way to come to D and A. B looks a broader statement. Now, this is saying that changes the term of confinement in the cave, our world, and how it is changing. It is in teaching us a new code. Photographers alter and enlarge our notions of what is worth looking and what we have the right to observe, right? So, I'm sure we are clear with this question. So, let's move to the next one. Try this. I'll give you a minute. You can try this and then we'll begin with the discussion. So, let's begin the discussion. Now, caffeine increases adrenal levels in the blood. Okay. Um, Good broad statement, possibly an opening one. Let's see. Adrenal is the hormone that's meant to be released when we are under stress and need to muster energy to say outrun a bear or lift a ball shoulder of our climbing partner. Okay, again, if you see adrenal, what is adrenal is B describing. So for me, AB can be a good mandatory pair. When we sense danger, for example, the pituitary gland activates the adrenal glands to secrete epinephrine or adrenal into our blood. So let's read further. The caffeine is the most consumed stimulant in the world. The chemical induces reaction through a body that normally occurs in intense situation. So if you are able to see the intense situation is being described by C, and there is this for example, remember we were talking about transition words. So AB is a mandatory pair and EC is a good mandatory pair that occurs in intense situations. And what sort of in situations, that's explained by C, right? So ABEC works well, and then D can definitely fit in as the conclusion. So the correct combination is going to be ABEC, right? Simple. So the more you're going to practice, the more you are going to get in sync with the idea. So let's try the next question. I'll give you a minute. Please try this and then we'll discuss. So let's discuss. Both parties use capital and labor in the struggle to secure property rights. So, who are both the parties? So, this cannot be an opening statement, right? So, clearly, there can be some possibilities that can be eliminated. The thief spends time and money in his attempt to steal, and the legitimate property owner expands resources to prevent the theft. So, अब यहाँ पे both parties की बात हो रही, कहीं connection है. Let's see. A social cost of theft is that both the thief and the potential victim use resources to gain or maintain control over property, right? तो अब आपको थोड़ी story clear हो रही होगी. So you can see uh, here we are talking about both the thief and potential victim. Now after CA can come, both parties use capital and labor, and how both parties use capital and labor, that's B explaining, right? So we can very easily come to the conclusion that A and B can be good mandatory pairs. So let's further proceed. These costs may accelerate as a type of technologically arm race unfolds. So these cost कहाँ पे बात हुई, B में. तो बी के बाद डी आने की पॉसिबिलिटी इंक्रीज हो जाती है, राइट? सो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, बी के बाद डी इंक्रीज हो गया. सो दिस इज अ सेट that we have created. A bank may purchase more and more complicated and sophisticated safes, forcing safe crackers to invest further in safe cracking equipments. So we have to put in this statement. So clearly C will begin because that's helping us. A, B, D is sorted. Now where can we place E? Either we can place E here or we can place E here. E, if you're placing here, does not set the rhythm of the discussion. So C, A, B, D, this will be the right way to make the paragraph, right? Because if we have tried fitting in here, in between capital and labor, you bring a bank and then you come to parties again. So this will not make the discussion flow go well. So that is the reason we will have C, A, B, D, E as the right combination. I hope we are sorted. Let's move to the next question. So I'll give you a minute. Please try this and then we are going to discuss. So let's quickly take a look at the question. News stories tend to interpret this evidence optimistically. So, which evidence we need to see? Reporting that coffee may be good for you. So, this always come back to the evidence that some coffee drinking is a common behavior among long-lived, healthy people across populations. So, you are knowing that the discussion is about coffee and the impact, but this is there in both the statements. So, looks difficult to be the opening statements. Randomized controlled trials on nutrition are extremely difficult to conduct as the effect of dietary changes are complex and often take a if not a lifetime to reveal themselves. Again, this doesn't look like to be a promising opening statement. We frequently hear that drinking a small amount of coffee can be healthy. And then you can see that A and B are talking about health benefits. So D, out of all the statements we have looked so far, is the most generalized one that's introducing us to the discussion. So we can conclude this that D will be an opening one. Let's further see. In reality, however, it just might be an interesting correlation. So we have to look for the correlation. So let's find out that how the correlation will fit in. So it's saying that small amount of coffee can be healthy. This comes to that now healthy how that's B is illustrating. So we can say that D and B can be a mandatory pair, and we have already concluded that D is going to begin the discussion. Now interpret this evidence. Which evidence? Evidence is being talked about in B. So A has to definitely come after B, right? So are you able to see how we are taking clues at these little details which are helping us, solve the question? Now, when we talk about the other two statements, then your randomized controls on nutrition are extremely difficult to conduct. So, how the interpretation comes, there's a correlation, and it may take a lot of time. Now, however, so he is trying to build the discussion to trying to take the discussion to a logical end, that this there can be just a correlation, passing a layman conclusion here, right? So our correct combination is going to be DBACE. All right, so let's move to the next one. So you have five sentences. Please try to rearrange so that it makes a meaningful paragraph. So let's discuss. Experts such as Larry Burns, head of research at GM, reckons that only such a full-hearted, so this is an example, right? So it cannot be an opening statement. Will allow the world to cope up with mass motorization that will one day come to China or India. Let's see. But once hydrogen is being produced from biomass or extracted from underground. Now, but once again, we need to have a previous statement like I wanted to go, but somebody came at my place. So this is how but needs to have a statement before it. So this cannot also be a good opening statement. We can read it so that at least we are aware of what's happening in the discussion. But once hydrogen is produced from biomass or extracted from underground coal or made from water using nuclear or renewable electricity, the way will open for a huge reduction in carbon emissions from the whole system. Okay, in theory. So theoretical discussions, a good possibility of it being an opening one. So I hope you've understood why we have eliminated A and B as not the opening statements. So once all the bugs have been sorted out, fuel cells should deliver better total fuel economy than any other existing engine. So it's a broader statement. Possibility of C being an opening one, though we should not take a decision before we explore all the options. This is that is twice. So which is twice we need to know. As good as the internal combustion, but only 5 percentage points better than a diesel hybrid. Now, allowing for the resources needed to extract hydrogen from hydrocarbon oil, the fuel can has an efficiency of 30. So efficiency, this is twice as good. So you can very easily come to the conclusion that E and D will be a mandatory pair because the numbers have been presented. Now the contrast, but once hydrogen is produced, right? So B will fit in after D, and then expert is bringing a conclusion here. So EDBA is something that we have identified. So C is the opening statement. So the correct combination is going to be CEDBA, right? So let's move to this question. This is the 10th one. I'll give you a minute to solve. Just do it and then we are going to discuss. So let's try this. In the west, Allied forces had fought their way through southern Italy as far as Rome. Doesn't look like to be an opening statement. In June 1944, Germany's military position in World War II appeared hopeless. So, this can be a good opening statement. In Britain, the task of amassing the men and material for liberation of Northern Europe had been completed. So, it this terms of time the reference is being made. The Red Army was poised to drive the Nazis back through Poland, right? So, this is talking about what happened in Britain, the Red Army. And then, if you'll take a look, the situation on the Eastern Front was catastrophic. So, hopeless and catastrophic. So, it's just explaining the situation. So, B and E can be together. Right. Now we have the other statements. The Red Army had to drive the Nazis back. In Britain, the task of emerging from the liberation had been completed. And then what was happening in the West, right? So D, C, and then you can bring the discussion to an end by explaining that what was happening in the West. So the correct combination is going to be B, E, D, C, A. Right? So I hope you really enjoyed the session. You found it useful. We have saw a lot of questions, so you must have got a lot of clarity. So please utilize the clues, be very efficient in looking for mandatory pairs and opening statements. Try to read and reason out together so that we can reach to the right answers in lesser time. Right? All the best. Thank you so much for your wonderful participation. Take care. Please help us spread the word. Bye bye.